Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Illuminating Insights. I'm joined here today by our friend and partner, John Roy. John has over 25 years of experience in the financial services industry. He has led business and technology teams and large-scale transformation programs, including Agile and DevOps methodology implementations, digital transformations, IT operations, IT architecture, PMOs, and technology business management. As a recognized leader in the Agile and digital transformation space, John has developed methodologies, spoken at conferences, and designed comprehensive corporate training programs. His primary focus in the past decade has been working with and for Fortune 500 companies to develop and optimize product development strategies. From 2019 to 2024, he led the Enterprise Agile Enablement Office at a large asset management firm in Boston, and he now runs the Global Agile Tooling and Platform Group at one of the largest consulting firms in the world. John, we are so happy to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. It's always good to talk with an old friend that has been part of our company's journey for a long time. So we are excited to have you here today because you are one of the probably best known experts, at least that I know, around the journey around project to product. So it's exciting to have you here. And when you and I sat down to talk about what we were going to talk about, um, you put together this great structure of how you wanted to approach the conversation, and I don't get that from a lot of our guests. And so we've got this fantastic set of bullet points that we're going to go through, and you wanted to really title this episode of the pivot to product, which is great. So we've got something that our listeners can really anchor around. And the first thing we wanted to really talk about is the product product management as a discipline is what I have written down.
Yeah, so I think a lot about product, and I think a lot about how it intersects with agility. And over the last 20 years, we have spent a lot of time and effort as an industry, as a set of uh, um, companies in various industries trying to target ways of working. And we have done an incredible job of moving from a very traditional, stodgy way of developing product into a much more flexible, fluid, and frankly, faster, better, cheaper ways of developing products. But I want to make sure we don't leave behind sort of product management as a discipline. And when I think about product management, there are very distinct attributes of a brand new product versus a product that's very mature in the marketplace. So, for example, if you are a brand new and maybe not even launched yet product, you have a distinct set of concerns, practices. You're doing a lot more heavy user acceptance, not user acceptance testing, user customer experience based work versus when you're a very mature product in the market, you are probably just gathering data through various customer feedback loops. So depending on where you are in that life cycle, you probably have different um, your ways of working will be the same. You're developing software exactly the same. You are thinking about your release processes and all that exactly the same way. But you're going to have a different bent on market segmentation and customer journey mapping. All of those things, they'll be slightly different depending on where you are in the product lifecycle. And product management as a discipline, I think, is so important to business strategy as a whole. So I want to make sure we have that connective tissue between the strategy and the execution. So our agile ways of working have done a lot to get us to better, faster, cheaper, and making our customers happier sooner. But we can't lose sight of sort of product roadmaps and developing products over a span of time.
And when you talk about this, John, it sounds like you're talking very specifically about software-driven products like a SaaS platform or even, our phones that always sit in our pockets anymore, those little tiny computers that we carry around. Could this apply to a physical product that isn't software driven?
Yeah, I think it certainly does. And so one of my favorite um, digital transformation stories is actually over at John Deere. John Deere is for some of us who live in cities, we don't know a lot about John Deere, and it started out as a tractor company, but they have certainly pivoted their product over the last couple of decades to incorporate digital information as a large part of their offering. So they now have IoT devices that gather data on weather and soil and moisture and all of that data to pull together information so that they can help their customers use the tractors better, use all of their agriculture equipment better. And so it's absolutely spans all manner of devices as well as digital products, things that we think of as software based.
So digital farming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's so fantastic. That's so fantastic. I love that. I love that because it just shows how really technology based so much of our world is anymore.
It truly is. And I can't think of a single company out there that's not thinking about digital transformation or using data to better equip their folks and better satisfy their customers.
And I think that's probably true because even if it's truly not a technical product, customers or companies are using data to really understand their customers, their buying habits, what they need, where they shop. Think about everybody that collects cookies on your computer.
Yeah.
I mean, I buy, you know, gifts and, fruit baskets or, you know, flowers to send to somebody. There's no technology in the actual product that I'm buying, but those companies that I'm buying from, they're using that data.
They're using the data to enhance their offerings, to enhance their strategy, and to make themselves more integral into your life.
Yes, yes. That's why, if you want to make sure that you're going to get Broadway show tickets, just talk next to your phone and you're going to see ads for those Broadway show tickets. So, um, talk a little bit about what that product life cycle might look like and what maybe some of those best practices and maybe not so best practices might be.
Yeah. So I mean, when I think about product management, geez, it goes all the way back to the 1930s, when this sort of discipline of product management started to get defined. It's come a long way since then, and certainly in the last 20 to 30 years, it has focused mostly on digital. But the discipline of product management has come a long way, and I think we have better defined sort of all of the stages of product management. There's a great book called Crossing the Chasm that
Mm,
talks about how users of a product will begin to internalize that product, to understand it better, and to fully adopt it. And I think those stages of adoption very well align with how we want to think about product life cycles, product management. And certainly there is so much effort up front as you're developing a new product, and uh, product development strategies, product development methods have also increased over time. And we are able to, if you think about how quickly new products can get launched to the market, decades ago, it would take years to launch a new product. Now we have startups launching new products in a matter of months, sometimes
Cross,
weeks.
Crossing the Chasm was a great book.
It's
I
one of
also
my
liked,
favorites.
now I also liked Mick Kirsten's book, Project to Product.
Project to Product is phenomenal. Mick is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant human, and I have read that book multiple times.
Yep,
It
it's
is,
on my
it,
bookshelf.
yeah, it's a lot of his points are truly core to my thesis around why um, why this pivot is so important and why revisiting product management in the context of how we develop is so important.
No, I agree. I agree. And one of the concepts that you brought up is a technology roadmap. Talk to me about what that looks like and
Yeah.
share with our listeners what a technology roadmap actually is for those that might not
Yes.
know.
So I think one of the things that we have lost in the software development, specifically agile software development space, is this larger, broader view. And I certainly not everybody who works in the Agile world thinks this way, but um, there's a long-term play here. There is a strategy of defining and developing products that needs a technology roadmap to go along with it. So you could just say, hey, I'm going to do a release every 2 weeks. I'm going to do a release every 2 minutes. Whatever that is, the frequency is almost irrelevant. What's most important is that you have a long-term roadmap and that you are working towards product features that matter, product enhancements that matter. It could even be functional requirements that matter to make your product more scalable, more deliverable, faster performance, whatever those things are along the technology roadmap need to be defined and thought out well ahead of time. And certainly your feature backlog, your story backlog, whatever those things are, will change in priority, but your long-term vision for the product and for the underlying technology should be fairly stable. And so those are the things that I think about. They're almost parallel, your product roadmap and your technology roadmap. Your technology roadmap is a little more granular and a little more aligned to the underlying technology, but they should absolutely move in parallel.
So let's talk a little bit about the difference between a product roadmap and a technology roadmap, because they could, on the surface, feel very similar to someone that's not familiar with them, but a product roadmap is really what you're developing, and a technology roadmap is the how, right?
Yes, exactly right. And when I think about product roadmap, I think about features. So we often talk about things like thin slicing of features and steel thread and some of those terms to define the way that we want to develop and launch something. So it is a unique and solely identifiable feature that can be used within a product. And all of the various components that are required for that to work get developed in a single release or a single sprint. And it's important to have the technology available to be able to do that. So in other words, if you're working on a database instance that's 3 versions old, you might not be able to develop all of the features that you want because you don't have all the capabilities that you need. And so having a technology roadmap that is able to keep up with all of those features that you want and the new capabilities in the marketplace, there needs to be the forethought in order to do that.
Understood. So that's where really understanding your customer and then having someone like your technology leader really working along with your customer success leader or someone like that, having that duality within your organization is really important, because if we've got features that are being requested, but we don't have the technology to build them on, then we've got an issue that we've got to figure out how to solve so that we can really get what our customers want.
Absolutely. And particularly in big companies where they have architecture review boards, very long lead times to approve new technology, standardization of technology. All of those things are super important in big companies so that you don't have sprawl of platforms. So you do need to have some standards for sure, but at the same time, you need to allow your teams the autonomy to explore different technologies and to be able to provide those capabilities that their respective products need. So it is a little bit of a balancing act. And to your point, you need the right people engaged to do that. We put so much onto our product owners and our product managers to expect them to understand all the ins and outs of brand new technologies out there while still managing the product as well. So it's a lot, and you need to make sure you have the right people involved.
So I'm gonna throw you a curveball, John, because we didn't talk about this one, but it's coming to mind as we're having this conversation. So how do we manage that then with all of the additives of like AI capabilities and those types of things? How do we decide when to build things like that into a product, even if our customer's not asking for it?
It is such a great question. AI, Gen AI, LLMs, process automation, the entire spectrum of what new technologies can offer us. Um, it's it's amazing how fast things are changing. The rate of change for technology has increased dramatically. From my perspective, in the last 10 years, that has increased dramatically. And that piece of the technology roadmap, it almost needs to be forward-looking, not just for your features, but what technology might our customers want, need, and how do we bring those in a way that doesn't disrupt our features. So Gen AI is a perfect example. Customers are asking for it, and it does, for most digital products, improve the product. So how do we pull that in? There's no single easy answer. I think for changes that large, you almost need to define the features that is going to supplement or enhance, and then work to define how we want to release those things. So again, it's a little bit of a parallel exercise, but when we bring those new capabilities to market, they can greatly enhance the features that we have or the customer reach that we have. So I like to do a very quick lean business case for any large technology aspects or features, and it's just a little bit of a is this worth it for us? Does it make enough sense, or are we just following the hype? If we're just following the hype, and if we want to say we're using AI just to say it, maybe it's not worth it. And that may be a contrarian point of view these days, but I think it really needs to enhance the product, or minimally enhance the way you service your customers and assist your customers. If it doesn't do that, then maybe it's just gold plating.
And that kind of leads us into a little bit of our next topic of how do we then bring in those customer feedback loops to make sure that it is actually enhancing our product, bringing them value, hopefully asking them to buy more or buy longer or pay more. So how do we then introduce bringing the customer in at the right time so that we know that we're building the right product or building the next best product that's going to be appealing to potentially even a wider audience?
I think customer feedback loops and customer feedback in general may be the most overlooked aspect of product management. And so many product owners and product managers just think, well, I own this product, so I know what's best. And frankly, maybe you do. Maybe you are such an expert in your field or in the product that you do just know. However, your customers are the ones that are using it every day. They're the ones that really matter. And if you don't have good customer feedback loops in place, you'll never know. Your customers may have, half your customers may have left your product for a new product on the market, and you might not even know it. So getting those customer feedback loops in place, having regular reviews of that information, super, super important. A lot of tech companies have simply incorporated this into their platforms or their products. I was working with a technology company several years ago, Silicon Valley company who was very, very good at this. And for each and every release, they would do hundreds of releases a day. And for each release, they would gather immediate feedback based on click-through rates, based on customer information, based on immediate reviews of how people were moving around their sites. And they would incorporate that, and they would do very tiny releases. They would say, we're going to release to 18 to 25-year-olds in Sao Paulo, and then in Seattle, and then in Toronto. And for each one, they would gather the feedback, they would put it into a machine learning database, and they would say, did this work? Did people overwhelmingly use this new feature that we just added? If yes, then we use this decision tree and we implement this next new thing that enhances it. And so it's almost it builds upon itself, and you are creating an entirely, not entirely autonomous, but you are creating a reinforcing product roadmap that builds on the success. If it doesn't work, you roll back those releases and you do something else. But that's what
Okay.
I mean about the long-term implications of a product roadmap and the features and why something's going to work or why it isn't. And if it does work, you expand it, you scale it, you build on it. If it doesn't work, you try something different. And so I think having those customer feedback loops in place is incredibly important. It can be as simple as asking your customers, sending out an email, having a pop-up on the screen. There's lots and lots and lots of different ways to gather that feedback and everything in between. Heck, even in-person focus groups. I know some companies do that very, very, very well. And understanding what the customer experience is through those focus groups, you can get much, much more detailed data and sentiment-based data in an in-person session. So whatever that customer, or all of them, maybe use all of those things. If you really care about your product and you really care about your customers, you use all of them. Use as many as you can, and you aggregate that data and you analyze it and you figure out what makes the most sense for the product. So to me, those customer feedback loops are the most important when you think about directional leadership of a product and deciding what to do next. Without them, you're flying blind.
Right, right. So, I mean, you've worked with our product and our company for a long time.
Yes.
So, one of the things that we hear a lot from our customers is we're unique, we're special. We're going to use your platform in a way that nobody else will. So, I don't know how much our opinion matters. What would be your response?
Everybody thinks they're special until you ask them why they're special. Um, so some companies truly are special. Some companies have such a niche or such an individual personalized product, or personalized service method, whatever those things are. Some companies truly are special. I get that. Um, but every time I've heard that from a client in my career, they're more similar than they are dissimilar to other companies. So I do think there's a bit of drill down and a bit of analysis you need to do there uh, to really understand why they're unique. And if they are, then you do incorporate that into your product roadmap.
Because we do want customers to feel unique and we do want them to feel like their individual needs are met, but at the same
Yes.
time, there there's usually common threads around needs when it comes to feature functionality.
Yes. And I do think having an individual customer need versus a company's customer need, uh, that's a slightly different thing. So every company says they're unique, but sometimes their customers, the end users, really are unique.
Mhm.
And that's where personalization comes in. And I have seen many clients get really involved in hyper personalization. And I do think that has been an effective strategy for a lot of companies. It does require more technology capabilities in order to do that, more robust technology roadmaps, but it usually pays off because you are able to serve up more personalized content, more personalized features, um, things like using feature flags for certain customer demographics within a technology platform that you're using. Super effective. I'm a big fan of feature flags.
Yeah, then we use them all the time and they're very effective.
Yeah.
So good to know. Good to know. One of the topics that you and I talked about that is it's a term that's used in so many different ways. I want to make sure that you and I talk about it and share how we're going to talk about it. And it's value stream mapping. I think I've heard this term used. Um, I think I tried to count after you and I talked. And I think when I went back, there were five different ways I've heard it referred to in just different scenarios over the past month. So I would love to hear you share how you think about value stream mapping.
Yeah. So, two quick thoughts on value stream mapping. Um, First, I feel like it's a little bit of a cop out. So, for a lot of companies who can't define their products well, they just say, "Well, it's a value stream." It might not be a product, but it's a value stream. Um, Oracle databases, it's a value stream. Um, Whatever they are, it's often a cop-out because they can't fully articulate why it's important. And people feel like they need to own things, especially at large companies. But for me, the second piece of this is great. You've identified a value stream. Help me identify what or how to quantify the end value. If you can actually tell me what the value is and if it's quantifiable, then yes, I agree. It's a value stream. So, so much of this, it is pervasive in the technology departments of large companies because they want to. There are owners of technologies that want to feel like that technology is important, even if it's not a product. And I agree, a platform can be a product, but you need to be able to define the value of it. Once you've defined the value of it, you can start to map out the steps that get you to delivering that value. But I always start with the end in mind and think about what is the value that it's actually delivering. If you can quantify that, yeah, that makes sense. And we can talk through all of the steps in the value stream and begin to enhance those steps through lean, through Scrum, through other means. We can make it better.
So, what are some different techniques that companies can use or individuals can use for value stream mapping? Because there's so many of them. So, what are some of the top ones that you've seen that are
There
actually
are,
applicable?
yeah. I mean, I think the simplest way is just flow charting.
Oh,
And when I think about lean in its infancy, going back to Toyota and some of the earliest value streams that were, to your earlier point, physical in nature, they would look at each step in the process as an input to getting to the final product. And so I think for most digital products, it's flow charting. So
okay.
just help me understand all of the steps involved getting to the final output. And I think that's it's the simplest way I have found. There's lots of complex ways to do it. There's a whole bunch of tools out there that'll help you do it. And maybe as you get more mature in that space, maybe use some of the tools as well, because you can start to categorize them and ultimately catalog all of them for your company. And I think that is valuable. If you have a catalog of all of your value streams, you've done a lot of good work there, and you can apply lean and process redesign and all of those methods to make them better. Um, but yeah, I usually just start with a nice simple flow chart.
Nice. Haven't seen a flowchart that's simple in a long, long time. Before we wrap up our time today, I wanted to talk with you about product operations and let's define those so that people understand what product operations are.
Melissa Perry has done some incredible work in this space. And just in the last few years, she's published two books on product. The first is all about the build trap, and the second one is just simply called Product Operations. But it is, when I think about the function that PMOs play, for example, in traditional project program management, particularly at the enterprise level, product operations can do a lot of the same things, but even from a broader perspective. And I think of, I like to think of product operations as sort of like the air traffic control of product management. And it's identifying, pulling together data from all of the various products in an organization, and then understanding where each of them might be excelling and others might need help. And that to me is super important. And it is similar to the role that the PMOs of old have played. So product operations gathers information about a product's development, how good they are at development. It gathers information about customer feedback loops. It gathers information about super important strategic things like customer segmentation, number of new customers per product, customer acquisition cost, overall revenue per product, gathers all of that information and can create a picture of how well that product is doing. It's almost a health indicator for each product. And that is one of the most important things a leadership team can look at as they're thinking about where do we reinvest money. I have seen some companies do this almost Shark Tank style and say, you want to develop a new product? Okay, pitch it to me. I'll give you 2 quarters worth of seed money. Then let's see how it does. But you need to have all of that infrastructure in place that product operations provides in order for that to work.
Interesting, interesting. So as our PMOs are evolving, as our organizations are changing, this is a great place where they can intersect and work with their pieces of the organization that are moving to new way of working. They can evolve and really become those product operations hubs and really stay
Absolutely.
connected with their teams that are really evolving how they work.
Yes, exactly right.
Fantastic, fantastic. We are about at our time today, John. This has been a really, really fast and interesting conversation. Anything that we didn't cover today that you wanted to share with our audience?
No, I think as we think about, I'll go back to where I started, as we think about how agile and business agility are evolving, I would love people to just keep product in mind. And product is that thing that we are doing. It is why we are doing what we do. Um, Keep those product roadmaps, and it truly helps you drive strategy to execution. Keep that in mind all the way through.
Thank you so much, John. And thank you all for listening to this episode of Illuminating Insights.